Alright, welcome back to TransGuyReacts. My name is Nick. I make videos about women's basketball, collegiate or professional, and today I'm talking about the last regular season game for the WNBA for Thursday, September 19th. And yes, I'm not wearing a shirt. I don't care. Alright, all the teams played today, so that's one thing to note. So it was a lot of games. It was from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. my time. And before I get into the games, there were hella transactions. On the 18th, the Chicago Sky released Kayla Davis and then signed her to a rest of the season contract for Chicago Sky, but it only matters if the Chicago Sky were going to make the playoffs. Spoiler, they did not. Elizabeth Williams had a contract amendment and a contract extension for the Chicago Sky. Asia Wilson had a contract amendment to the Aces, and then the Atlanta Dream signed Izine Kalu to the rest of the season contract. And then on the 19th today, Phoenix Mercury released Amy Atwell and then signed her to the rest of the season contract. Olivia Pupa was signed to the rest of the season contract with the Minnesota Lynx, which is very confusing because back on August 20th, she was traded to the Mystics, and the Mystics immediately waived her. So I don't know if there was just some kind of like technical transactional thing that they needed to do, but she's back with the Minnesota Lynx and she signed for the rest of the season. Marina Mabrey and Dewana Bonner had contract amendments signed with the Connecticut Sun. So the first game was the Atlanta Dream versus New York Liberty. Ariel Powers and Cheyenne Parker-Tyus were out of this game. They're out for the season. But if the Dream win this game and the Sky loses, they would lock in the 8th place for the playoff spot. It was a strong first quarter for the Dream, 21-15. The Dream were killing the Liberty in the second quarter. And I was actually kind of surprised the Liberty starters were even in the game. They really could have just been resting because they locked in the number 1 spot. But they were playing. They didn't play the second half, though. At the halftime, it was 43-30. And then the Dream ballooned the lead to 19 points. And then at the end of the third, it was 66-49. Things to note were that Lisa Leslie and Swin Cash were in the house, so they were supporting the Liberty, I think. And then the Liberty bench players played most of the third and fourth quarter, and they actually made a push on the Dream in the fourth quarter, and they cut the lead, but the Dream were able to maintain it, and they won 78-67, solidifying their 8th place playoff spot. Let me see if this box score. My computer is going a little slow. Oh, we're not going to do it. Oh, no, wrong game. Alright, so looking at this box score for that Atlanta Dream New York Liberty game. Brianna Stewart had 16 points. And Nia Sabli had 14 points. No one else was in double figures. But Nigelini Hamilton had 9. And Jalen Sherrod had 8. So not a great offensive game for the Liberty. But the Dream, Ryan Howard had 13. Naz Hillman had 13. Tina Charles had 10 points, 10 rebounds for a double-double. Alicia Gray had 10. So just a much better offensive outing for the Dream. The second game was Chicago Sky versus the Connecticut Sun. Kennedy Carter, Camila Cardoso, Elizabeth Williams, Diamond DeShields, and Angel Reese were all out for various reasons, injuries, sickness, all that. But, they all looked really beautiful on the sideline. They were dressed to the nines, and they looked great. For the Sun, Tiffany Mitchell was still out, but they have the rest of their roster. The Sky really need to win this game, and the Dream needed to lose their game for them to make the playoffs. But the Sun had the advantage in the first quarter and pretty much throughout the game, and they were just really kicking Sky's ass. Bonner did get a technical foul in the third quarter, but the Sky did what the Sun did what the Sun needed to do, and they won that game 55-87 was the final, which is that's a tough score. But there was literally 5 players out for the Sky, so what can you do? Isabel Harrison did have 13 points and 11 rebounds for a double-double. Kayla Davis had 12 points and Dana Evans had 14 points, but you couldn't slow down the Sun. Dewana Bonner had 11 points. Alyssa Thomas had 13 points. Dejanay Carrington had 12 points, 12 rebounds for a double-double. Tyisha Harris had 15 points. Marina Mabrey had 12 points. Olivia Nelson-Ododa had 12 points. It was just a lot of firepower. The third game of the night was the Indiana Fever versus the Mystics. Aaliyah Edwards and Shakira Austin were out for the Mystics. and I don't normally watch Fever games because of the stain of racism that follows that fan base, but it is a regular season game and the last one of the season, so I looked at it from time to time. And that was on Amazon Prime. The first quarter and the second quarter, the Mystics were on a run. They were up the entire time. It was like 45-52 at halftime. And the third quarter, the Mystics continued to have a lead up to like 16 points. It was like 66-82. And then the Fever did come back apparently in the fourth quarter, which I didn't watch. And the Mystics were able to pull it off though. They won by 1 point. It was 91-92. The Mystics do not make the playoffs. They needed the Dream to lose, and that did not happen. So they won that game, but kind of for naught. For the box score, Alyssa Smith had 16 points. Leah Boston had 10. Kaylee Lou Samuelson had 10. Christy Wallace had 17. Caitlin Clark had a terrible night. She had like 8 points. Really bad night for her. Is that it? 8 points, yeah. And then Mystics, Brittany Sykes had 12 points. Emily Inksler had 17 points. Ariel Atkins had 17 points. Zika Kone had 20 points. Shotori Walker-Kimbo had 12 points. There's just a lot of firepower. But I guess let me look at that box score for the fourth quarter. Yeah, they just like really Indiana Fever kicked Mystics' ass in that fourth quarter, but Mystics still won by 1 point, and win is win. The fourth game of the night was the Los Angeles Sparks versus the Minnesota Lynx. This game was on a channel that I couldn't have access to, so I didn't really watch it. Or did I watch a few minutes of it on my phone? I might have got a couple minutes of it, but it didn't really matter because the Sparks were out of the playoffs, so who cares? But it was Lexi Brown, Lasia Clarendon, Ari McDonald, Cameron Brink, and Odyssey I think Odyssey might have played that game, but they were all out for the Sparks. Durka Juhas, Nafisa Collier, and Kayla McBride were out for the Minnesota Lynx. And the Sparks did have a really good game. The first quarter, they punched Lynx in the face, 19-13, and then it was surprising they had the lead in the game most of the time. At the end of the third, it was 53-44. And then in the fourth quarter, the Lynx were just shooting absolutely terrible. And I mean, they didn't have Kayla McBride or Nafisa Collier, so that's like 30 points off the boards right there. So Sparks had a really sizable lead at one point, like 19 points. They won this game 68-51. I think this was like the lowest scoring game for the Lynx all year. That was just absolutely freaking terrible. And not one person got into double digits for the Lynx. That is freaking awful. Wow. Okay. For the Sparks, Rakia Jackson had 19 points. Dearica Hamby had 20 points. Kia Nurse had 12 points. So, yeah, I mean, just more firepower. You're going to win the game. The fifth game of the night was the Dallas Wings versus the Las Vegas Aces. Stephanie Suarez, Tira McCowan, and Enrique Gumbawale were out for the Wings, which is not great in terms of their chances of winning this game. And then for the Aces, they rested Jack. So they rested Jackie, Asia, Chelsea, and Kelsey. And again, all of these women looked amazing on the sidelines. They were all dressed up to the nines. Also to note, Asia is the only player in WNBA history to be leading in points, rebounds, and blocks. Crazy. The game really didn't matter because the Wings are out of the playoffs and the Aces are just battling for positioning, but, gotta play. But it was nice to see the bench players for the Aces, and they were turning fucking up in this game. It was crazy. Even start for both teams in the beginning. It was like 30-30 in the first quarter. Kirsten Bell got in the game, and she was cooking. Sydney Colson was in the game, and she was playing great. At halftime, it was 45-60, so it was super impressive for just being the bench players. In the third quarter, they were still putting the hammer down, and then Megan Gustafson went off. She had a career high night tonight, actually. And then it was like 66-88 at the third. And then the fourth quarter, the Wings did cut the lead a few times, but then the Aces just roared right back, and it ended 84-98. So a very decisive win for Aces. For Dallas, Maddie Secrets had 12 points, Natasha Howard had 13 points, Kalani Brown had 13 points, Satu Sabali had 25 points, and Jalen Brown had 15 points. So they did what they could, but Aces were just tearing it up. Alicia Clark had 10 points. Megan Gustafson had 24 points for a career high. Tiffany Hayes had 21 points. Sydney Colson had 13 points. Kirsten Bell had 12 points. Sydney and Kirsten never play. And when they play, they can play really well. So it's just a lot of firepower from everybody who got to play tonight. And then last but not least, or really actually it is least, it's just so many games going on. Seattle Storm versus Phoenix Mercury. Charisma Osborne and Rebecca Allen are out for the Mercury. Ezzie Magmavor and Jewel Lloyd were out for the Storm. And this game was more about positioning because both teams made the playoffs. And this was possibly the last regular season game for Diana Taurasi. As for the game, it was a super strong start for the Storm, 35-14 in the first quarter, which is crazy. They just came out swinging. Things to note: Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird, and Penny Taylor were in the building for this game. Obviously, Penny is Diana Taurasi's wife, so she would be there. Also, Gino Auriemma and Chris Daly from UConn were in the building as well. And obviously they're there for DT, but they also were there for Nika Mule from the Storm, supporting her as well. But yeah, the Storm were able to maintain that lead in the second quarter, 43-31, and the Storm were still dominating in the third quarter. It was 68-49. I was like, oh, they getting blown out. That's unfortunate. In the fourth quarter, Nika Mule finally makes her first points of the season with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. She finally makes her layup. Good for her. Great. But yeah, the Storm are just really playing really well tonight, even without Jewel and Ezzie, which is kind of surprising. They win this game 89-70. Like, very, very decisive win. DT does get recognition for her career, 20 years with the Mercury, and she says a few words with her kids running around her, being menaces basically. But it was cute. As for the scoring, Sophie Cunningham had 10, Brittany Griner had 11, Diana Taurasi had 9, Makia Herbert Harrington had 9, and Natasha Mack had 10. Just not enough though. Seattle Storm, Gabby Williams had 10. Nika Ngumike had 17, Mercedes Russell had 14, Sammy Wickham had 11, Skylar Diggins-Smith had 14, Jordan Holmes had 10, Victoria Vivens had 9. It's just a lot. The Storm are just crazy good right now. But yeah, that was the recap for today. If you like this kind of quick recaps, like, share, comment, subscribe. Actually, do not comment. I do not have my comment section on. I don't care what you guys think. But yeah, if you like this kind of stuff, appreciate it. See y'all in the next one. Bye. Peace.